Welcome to the Rant Live. Welcome, everyone, to the Rant Live. This is a Chicago Bears webcast and podcast, and I'm one of your hosts. My name is John, and right next to me there, oh, hey, I finally got that right, is Evan.
Hello, I am the other host, and I am also here.
You,
oddly enough, and this is, again, as you mentioned, so for those who may be watching us live, obviously, Kyle, frequent viewer, I think Kyle's actually logged in 10 times. That's why we have 10 viewers that I can see live. Ooh, now it's up to 11. Good job, Kyle. Keep opening those browsers. It's like when you used to have to shop for Cubs. I'll get into that maybe later. But anyway, if you're watching it live, you probably aren't going to listen to the podcast. However, we will.
Unless you're demented.
Yeah, we're not that cool. I know I do have a sexy.
But you're pretty cool.
I'm fairly cool, but I don't
cool.
have a neat pseudonym, so maybe I'll have to come up with one of those, and then I'll be even cooler. But it's a podcast as well, so even if you are viewing live, we would really appreciate it if you did go out to whatever formats in which you like to cast your pods, especially if it's iTunes, and give us a nice little 5-star rating. That would be helpful, because eventually we'd like to maybe turn this thing into something that we could, I don't know, get some sponsors or that sort of thing. And they actually look at those.
Kyle, we're talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, the last podcast I hosted actually gave someone herpes, and that didn't do well for our ratings. But
Wow.
But this one we're hoping to avoid.
That's unique.
Yeah, we would like your applause, but we won't give you the clap.
And there you have it. And that's the show for today. No,
yeah, that's all. That's our tagline. Yeah.
So, well, Merry Christmas. Did you have a nice Christmas?
Yeah, really did. Didn't do much of anything, which was, kind of, it's as much as I miss family gatherings, I'm realizing that it's like, man, when you don't have to get up and go anywhere and you just sit around in your pajamas all day, it's really not that bad. And so for anybody who follows me on Twitter, and you may have already seen this, I've talked about this before, my Tavor account, which I should bring up, my beer subscription, right? The deal that you can go in there and buy. So I had loaded up, and it was like a really long, their shipping got delayed. So my crate, as they call it, about once a month, right? And you load up on beer and then they ship it out to you. But it got delayed. There were some COVID issues in their warehouse, and it took a while to get out. And then it got lost somewhere at the hub in Chicago, the delivery service.
Yeah,
and it was just gone.
Beer got lost.
Right, just gone. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, it's been there for 5 now.
Just gone.
And anything. So I got the main Christmas gift I got from my wife is also, it's in the USPS system somewhere. It was supposed to have arrived last Monday. No idea where it is. It got into Indianapolis like a week and a half ago, and it has remained there. Anyway, so this thing, so it's like, it's sitting there for like 5 days, hey, UDS has not received a package yet. I'm like, that's odd. And it's going on like this for like 5 days. And so I email them, and I'm trying to call the delivery service, right? And just get a busy message. I'm like, oh, that's strange. And so finally they get an email out like, hey, we've misplaced a pallet. Right. I'm like, how do you, okay. And I get this, I'm freaking out. I'm pissed because there's like a lot of beer that was in here, like way more than I'd expected because of the extra delay. So it's like 2 months worth. And after getting this email, the next day, as I'm backing out of my driveway, dude shows up, 2 giant packages of beer. And that was on, I think, Wednesday. I think it was the 23rd. So right in time for Christmas.
Nice.
And lo and behold, this morning, it was delayed so much that my next month's shipment showed up today. So within the space of a week, less than a week, I got 4. I don't have the boxes down here. The 2 packages combined on the last one were like 80 pounds.
How many beers are we talking
bottles
about?
and cans, and just clap your hands. 47.
Wow. 47 beers, all high ABV, I'm assuming.
Mostly, yeah. A lot of barrel aged stuff. So there was like a 3-pack. Was that one from that was from Braxton? I think that was where's that one in? Is that in Cincy or Lexington? But 3 different of their BA beers. Had some other ones in there, and a bunch of hazy IPAs and some other various ones. I didn't get around to the ones from today. So, yeah, so I have a lot of beer. And I actually said to my wife, it's last night, I said, should I maybe like dry out a little bit for a couple of days? And she was like,
No.
why?
Yeah.
Like
That's a keeper, baby.
You got the rest of the week off. Like, wait, save that for the new year. It's like, okay. And then, that was last night. And then just like magic, 2 giant boxes of beer show up on my doorstep today. And the dude's rocking a Bears hat. So it's cool. And he's got to like stand back from it. So he drops it off. And he's just got to get your birthday to confirm you're 21, but, no. So that was my very long, but that was kind of my Christmas, just sitting around. I did make the mistake of watching Wonder Woman 84 on HBO Max when it came out on Christmas Day. And that kind of ruined like 2.5 hours of the day. But
I did not watch it, but
don't.
I will.
No, you shouldn't.
Really? It's got that. I mean, just for the action alone, it's got to be worth watching.
Bad. It is a bad movie. The script is bad. The plot is bad. The effects are bad. The general concept is like half of the movie is just goofing on the 80s, which is fine, but there's a lot of sight gags. Just
when did they make it though?
Like over the last year or so.
Well, that's a good time to make a movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming they kind of had wrapped.
Maybe that's why it's bad
prior to March. Well, and that's why I wonder, like they couldn't go back and do any reshoots or maybe not as many, and certain things, and it was a mess. And I really, really enjoyed the first Wonder Woman movie. I thought it was great, but there was a lot of just weird. So, I mean, yeah, if you want to watch it, and that's the thing, I did have I saw some people whose opinions I respect greatly. One of the hosts from the King Cast, and he's much more involved in movie criticism. So I will defer to some of that there. Although the thought was that being on streaming services would lead to more harsh or harsher critical reviews, particularly from fans, than if someone had gone to the movie theater. However, my thought is, if I had to go to the movie theater and pay the money for the tickets, because my whole family was able to watch it, so if we all went to see it, and I bought popcorn, I bought all this, and I pay $50 to $100, given whatever the case might be, I'd be way more pissed if I had blown all this money and time to go see it. As it was, I was sitting around in my pajamas streaming it for free, or whatever it cost me for HBO Max or the HBO. So, but I didn't have to go anywhere. So I'm kind of like, it sucks,
and you're still upset about it.
Well, I'm still upset about it, but I just like it sucked, but whatever. I had the ability to pause it in between. Got over some other stuff, like
could nap, not off here and there.
And it's the same thing. Like we talk about this with the Cubs and the Bears and how much they charge for tickets. Well, if they suck, if they're giving you a crappy product, then I'm going to be more pissed if I had to pay a premium price to observe a crappy product, right? Versus the other way around.
Winning the championship or something.
You're charging me bargain basement rates. I don't really, whatever. I paid $10 for the ticket. What am I going to complain about? So anyway, that's my thought. That's me bitching about Christmas and beer. How is your Christmas?
Well, we got a dog, a small dog. I have a 8. How old is my son? 8 years and 7 years old. And boy, did they want a dog. And so we got just kind of worked out right. We'd been kind of looking for a dog as, once COVID set in and we were kind of all at home, which we're all at home anyways. We started talking about a dog, but it's like dogs were like, flying off the shelves, so to speak. And it was real hard to get one. And then we had a friend who just happened to have a puppy that we got. And so it's a 15-week-old mixed Bichon Yorkie Maltese mix.
Okay.
Fairly well behaved so far. It's our first family dog. So yeah, that's exciting. The kids are, trying to learn some responsibility, and my son got a new axe bat. Thank you for sending me that link when they were on sale, Evan.
Nice.
And he's pretty psyched about that. Now, if only there were baseball for him to play. That sure would be nice. But so there's not yet, but there should be soon. So yeah, it was a good Christmas. It's nice. It's a little chilly here in Arizona. It's not too cold. I think the high today is going to be close to 60 degrees. And so yeah, everything is really good. And the Bears won yesterday. I guess we may as well talk about them eventually. The Bears did win yesterday. And strangely enough, this season has just been just the weirdest, start out 5-1. It's like this crazy, unbelievable start. And you're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then 6 games in a row, the worst football you could imagine after a 5-1 start. really that you could imagine, even if you were a bad team. And then now suddenly the Bears have won. What have they won? 3 in a row or something?
Yeah, it's been 3 and over
3 in a row,
even including the loss before that, over 30 points or 30 or more. They scored 30 in the loss, but
4 times in a row. First time they've done that since 1965 when a guy you may all know, George Halas was running the ship as the manager of the Chicago Bears. And yeah, I mean, the Bears really look good. I mean, listen, Mitch Trubisky has looked very good the last couple of games. Now, but let me rephrase. Let me put that the way the reality. Let me spin reality on that. It's not that he's really looked good. It's that he has not looked really bad. He's been doing kind of the things he's got.
Not always bad, although there is always going to be a bad. He's going to make at least one really bad, because it happened yesterday. There was a really bad interception. The previous game, and I feel like it's like the Jay Cutler, the ghost of Jay Cutler coming back. Like, man, everything's rolling, and then just a dumb pick in the red zone, or in the end zone, as a lot of these have come. But anyway, yes, game management has been which is, it is weird to say game management when you talk about a team that's putting up 30 plus points, but it's not like we're seeing like Tom Brady in that just absolute blowout the other day had like 350 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first half. Like, you're not seeing Trubisky put up these monster numbers,
and that's never going to happen.
No,
I mean,
if
we're being honest with each other.
Not that it shouldn't, but I mean, I don't think anybody expects that, or they better not have after the last few years.
And so, I mean, what Mitch did, listen, he was 21 for 24 in passes that were 10 yards or less. He was 24 of 35 overall, so he only completed 3 passes over 10 yards. And that's what you are going to get from Mitch Trubisky. And that is the majority of the NFL anyways. And guys that are good or just kind of okay, if you're going to be a decent quarterback, you're going to have to be good from 10 yards in. And he was. And the real good ones, the great ones are good from, beyond 10 yards, 10 to 20, and then 20 yards and out, those long kind of over the top throws, which Trubisky does not have. But so they've been game planning really well around Mitch's strengths. They've been giving the rock to David Montgomery. He ran the ball.
And I just want to, who's been calling the plays since this has been
not Matt Nagy.
Okay. Yeah. That's anyway, continue.
Yes, exactly. And so, to your point, giving Matt Nagy the ability to step back and actually, manage the team instead of just the offense, which is an ideal and novel concept. And so they've been doing real well. But what Mitch has done the last 2 games, as you pointed out, is, last week he threw a really bad interception in the corner of the end zone. This week it was 1st and 10 on the Jaguars 13-yard line. And again, he threw a really bad interception where he was running. He had the chance to kind of throw the ball away. And instead of doing that, he threw it in like double, triple coverage. It was a terrible throw. I mean, it's just not a pass you make. And so any other quarterback that's a good quarterback just throws that out of the end zone. And for some reason, there was really no reason to make that throw. It wasn't, you're not trying to win the game. You don't have to score a touchdown there. You've got several more downs to play on. And so it was just one of those things where it was just like Mitch Trubisky. And it's really the only bad mistake that he made that I saw in the game yesterday. But it's just one of those things where it's like, God, it just keeps happening. When is he ever going to have just a clean game where he doesn't do something stupid like that? And I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's possible. Although the fact that we are seeing it right, and this is, so I look at a couple different things here. On one hand, and actually before I get to that, there was an interesting little note, and I forgot to do anything. I think I was making dinner or something at the time, but I believe it was during the Fox, the late afternoon game, right? I think it was the Seahawks Rams game, because that was the one that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were on the call, I believe. And Aikman was talking about, and now for the life of me, I can't remember which OC it was, but was talking about how this season he had moved up to the coach's box from the sideline and was talking specifically about, and this is Aikman saying how, a lot of guys, it takes a really special coach to be able to really understand the perspective that you have of being on the sideline versus being above and being able to see the whole field. And boy, isn't that interesting that that's the exact same thing we've talked about with Nagy and how he's, whether it's a perception thing, he's not able to perceive appropriately or doesn't appear to be able to perceive that stuff. And he talked about it too, about having laser call the plays and allowing him to be a head coach, which again, oddly enough, is something that we had advocated for. But as much as that's a good thing, so on one hand, you could look at that and say, it's a good thing that he's delegated that authority to one of his assistants. He's turned those things over. They're rolling Mitch out. He's bootlegging frequently. Not trying to be a pocket passer. They're limiting his reads, and these things have gotten better. That's great. And we're seeing these great results. But the problem with that is fans and analysts have been saying for weeks, just this year alone, and it goes back to last year as well, that these things should have happened long ago. And that's the part that worries me, is that on one hand, we could say, hey, cool, it looks like they've finally gotten it figured out. I shouldn't have to use finally. You should have figured this out over a year ago. Not only that, but then it says, what about future issues that come up? What about different personnel? Are we going to have to wait this long on all these other decisions? Or, is Nagy's ego in the way? Because we've heard him talk about play calling is my lifeblood. That's what I love. But you're shitty at it. Play design is what you do well. Play calling is terrible. And we've seen how much better they can be. So again, and I'm stuck here. And now we're at the point where it's like, gosh, did you do too little too late to where it's possible, still very possible, they could miss out on the playoffs based on the way things just broke recently. A pun fully intended there if we're talking about Jared Goff's thumb. But getting in as the 6th or the 7th seed, could they continue this run and could they continue to play really well and shake some things up in the playoffs and actually have some success? Yeah, maybe. But if they end up losing, or if the Cardinals end up winning, it's not going to matter. Like there's some.
To be fair, the Cardinals have looked like trash.
Oh,
they've
got
beat by the 49ers. Kyler Murray, I think, is. I think he kind of. He was getting so much praise from everybody about how great he was that I think he may have started to believe that. And you kind of see the result.
He's like the opposite of Trubisky because he's really, really good with the deep ball and he can scramble very well. But it's a lot of those intermediate, because I think what we're seeing from him, and I'm struggling with it. Like, it reminds me a lot of early Michael Vick, who was so dynamic running the ball.
Yeah.
And had a cannon for an arm and could just fire it deep like nobody's business. But really understanding the bigger picture in terms of the short game and the mid-range game and how to kind of make some of those finesse plays work. And he actually figured that out a long time down his career. But super exciting to watch, right? Because Murray can make plays with his feet. He can run all over the place.
And DeAndre Hopkins is a stud. The guy is
right.
All you have to do is just throw the ball within like 5 yard
neighborhood. And so very interesting there. But I again, and I think who is it? Isn't it? Is it Allen? Is he the other one in Buffalo? Isn't he the other one who's really, really good on deep passes? I know Russell Wilson,
Josh Allen,
has traditionally been. He's not as good this year. Yeah, Josh Allen. But that's the thing, is I'd love to see Mitch get to that point, and maybe that's something you can build upon. Although it takes a special amount of arm talent. But then you watch someone like Aaron Rodgers just absolutely go ham on the defense, and just go nuts. And you watch that, and you're like, holy shit, that is a real. Now, not everybody can beat that, right? Most people can't. But man, it was like, as much as I hate watching it, and that's what scares me though, is because Packers. We were hoping maybe things fall the right way. Packers don't need a win, but guess what? They're still playing for a number 1 seed.
Yes,
so
they are.
The next game matters. And we saw what Aaron Rodgers did to the Bears last time, and he's looking as
they
good
stopped
this year as
trying.
he
The
ever
Packers
has.
stopped trying in the fourth quarter and halfway through the third quarter, to be honest with you. So, and I mean, listen, we're being delusional if we think that the Packers are not going to beat the Bears, or the Bears are going to beat the Packers, or whatever, however you want to say it. I think I don't think it's being realistic. Could it happen? Of course it could happen. I'm not so sure about the Bears defense. They've kind of been up and down. They didn't dominate yesterday. They were good, right? I mean, they stopped a bad offense essentially many times, but they only had one sack. The Jaguars had 10 penalties, which was terrible, and helped the defense. And I don't know how many of those were offense versus defensive penalties, but in the end, that a penalty against another team is going to help the other team's defense no matter what. And so it's just one of those things where it didn't feel like the Bears in a game that they really could have come out and completely dominated did. The game yesterday was won, strangely enough, by the offense and their efficiency, and handing the ball off to David Montgomery, who ran for 95 yards on 23 carries. Great to see Montgomery getting over 20 carries. Really, really important, I think, if the Bears are going to be successful. But so, yeah, I mean, to think that the Bears are going to win next week, I think it's going to be a stretch. They're playing in Green Bay. God knows it'll probably be like a blizzard or something like that. And so that's going to be tough. So the Cardinals would have to lose to the Rams, which I think is a fairly likely scenario given the Rams defense, not given their offense. I know that Jared Goff is hurt, but listen, Jared Goff has not been a great quarterback this year. He's actually been really bad. And every time you watch the Rams play, all the announcers can talk about is how bad Jared Goff has been.
But when you replace him with a dude who's never played, and
yeah, but it's like one of those things
win,
where that'll happen. Like a guy like that'll come in and have like just this crazy game, right? And then like who was a quarterback for the Packers that did that? And then he got signed by the Seattle Seahawks for this big contract. It was like 5 years ago.
I was going to say I was going to go back to Hasselbeck if you're going.
And then he was no good. He was no good. He didn't turn out to be anything. But he finished out. I think it was for the Packers. I think it was the Packers. Anyways, so that happens, right? You'll get a guy who's never, and people don't know him, and you can't really scout him that well. And kind of if you set up the game plan properly. I don't have a lot of confidence that the Cardinals are going to beat the Rams next week. I don't, but I also
I was going to, Kyle pointed this out, but isn't the game in Chicago? I mean, not that it really matters because there's,
Oh, is it in Chicago?
I don't even know. Half the time, I don't even know where games take place anymore because there aren't any fans and there's not
really matter.
It's an eerie, but it's like just the noise factor. And that was why it was weird to watch the game in Green Bay last night. Cause like the dude, their kind of backup running back, scored a couple touchdowns, or at least the first one, he's like trying to do the Lambeau leap, but he couldn't make it up, and there weren't any people there anyway. Really couldn't make it up. Dudes are boosting him up over the snow. But no, I mean, I think, the combination of things that needs to happen, or it's just really two things. So it's not as if we're talking about if this and this and this and this, but the issue is kind of where you have it, because you've got a very motivated Cardinals team going up against a Rams team, and again, technically it's still possible that Goff could play, but the latest, and I retweeted this, and I forget who'd it come from, one of the NFL pundit guys, but that the thumb is broken, that it's highly unlikely Goff's going to play. He's got to have surgery to correct it. So barring. And would you rather have him play with a broken thumb and then have somebody who's actually healthy playing? That's the thing, but it'll be interesting to see. But I mean, that Rams team, again, you're talking about a Rams team that got beat by the freaking Jets. You know what I mean? Like, how bad do you have to be? And the Jets won again. Like, how bad are you as a Jets team? The Jets basically, and with the Bears win, the Jaguars have now locked in the first pick. Like, how bad did the Jets mess that thing up? You go and you win a couple games against, like, I know nobody, the players themselves don't want to tank, but like, man, you screwed that up, guys. But no, I'm not really convinced of a lot. Although, again, the way the Bears have been playing, and this is what we've kind of hoped we could have seen, because even when they were winning early and then when they were losing, it was always this lopsided, like it was mostly the defense. The defense would do really well and shut the other team down. They got lucky with the Lions dropping a pass early on, or then you come back and the offense would just play like complete garbage, or then you have a game where the defense just fell apart, and they weren't a balanced attack. And now you're seeing it's like, okay, wow, it's weird how this works when both sides are actually capitalizing on things. And the defense is putting you in good field position, the offense is capitalizing. You've actually got a kicker who can make field goals, and lo and behold, things work well when you run the ball frequently and stop just going to all passing. It's weird, but so in that regard, I feel kind of good about it. But I don't know.
You're going down that path, Evan. And
I know, but and like I said, I'm never going to root for them to lose, but I hate this dwelling in mediocrity. 8-8, 9. They can't fire Nagy because they didn't have this is the third straight non-losing season or whatever. Like, that's just not having a losing season should not be the benchmark, for success. And it's also difficult. Again, we've talked about this with the draft picks. Of course, if they leave everybody in place, do you really want? I almost think Pace might be better off with middle round draft picks that he can't screw up as bad. But it'll be.
But here's the thing. Here's where we are. And so I am going to walk down that path is, listen, if the Bears beat the Packers, however unlikely that may be, I haven't even seen the line, but if the Bears beat the Packers, that's going to be a huge win. And it's going to be a momentum builder, a momentum capturer, because they've already got a little bit of momentum going into the game. And let's say they come in, they score 30 plus points, and their defense makes some big plays, gets some turnovers, maybe even gets a touchdown, and they win convincingly, which can happen. And then they'll play either New Orleans or Seattle in the first round of the playoffs, which they honestly, that New Orleans game, they really controlled that game the first half. And I'm not afraid of New Orleans. I think the Bears can beat New Orleans, and I think they can beat Seattle. I don't think Seattle is that good. They haven't played very well at all. And so, I mean, listen, and that's where you go, right? Is you start saying, hey man, if the Bears can beat the Packers, and then that next matchup, they can win that matchup. And then next thing you know, they've just knocked off, the Packers are still there because they'd have to play them eventually again. But your mind starts to work, and you start to convince yourself that suddenly you're in a situation where you're not that far away from having a tremendous amount of success.
Yeah, I do. I feel like we're going down this Rocky 3 path, right? Where Mick has just been scheduling a bunch of tomato cans for Rocky to beat up. And then when he finally faces Clubber Lang, he just gets his ass destroyed. And that's where I'm kind of like, the Bears have been facing tomato cans, right? Like, let's be completely honest. I mean, the Lions, even they lost the Lions, they shouldn't have, but the Lions suck. The Texans mailed that game in. They didn't even have like half their offense, and they just gave up on that one. And the Jaguars are a freaking joke. Like, that was one of the worst defensive performances you can imagine. So it's nice. Like, these are great get right games, but it's sort of like, again, college football, college basketball, whatever you want to say, that in the early season when you're playing, St. Mary's School for the Blind, and you're really happy that you scored 150 points on them or whatever. It's like, yeah, but they couldn't see. So of course you won. And then you face a real school and they punch you in the mouth, and then you're like, whoa, I thought we were better than this. So I don't know. So I look at this both ways. I don't know, man. The Packers scare me still. Either way.
Kyle's saying so. If the Bears beat the Packers, and let's say
because the Packers would be the 1 seed if the Bears sneak back in,
Seattle and New Orleans win, then I think the
Packers would be at 2.
Does that put the Packers at 2, or do they lose a tiebreaker and move
the Packers
to 3?
Need to win. Well, I don't know. Would they lose a tiebreaker at that point? I haven't looked at the scenarios. I just know if the Packers win, they get the 1 seed. I haven't looked at if they lose, can they drop to 3?
That's the thing. And so that would be the trick, is if somehow if the Bears did beat the Packers and then they'd end up playing the Packers
But
again. I'm just not sure if that's
the
it's
Bears would be
possible, but
6. If the Bears win, they're 6, right? Even if the Bears win and the Cardinals win, the Bears would have them at that point
I'm not sure
or
if
would the
the
Bears drop
Rams.
down to 7 at that point?
I think the Bears stay 7 because the Rams have the tiebreaker, right?
Because we looked at that. Well, I'm not talking about the Rams. I'm talking about the Cardinals, because the Bears are ahead of the Cardinals now. But if they both win,
yeah. Then you're right. The Rams are out. The Bears move up to 6.
the Cardinals are 7 because the Bears are ahead of the Cardinals right now. But if the Packers are 2, then the Bears miss them. But if the Packers drop to 3, the Bears would get them. If the Bears are at 7, which they would lose if the Rams win and the Bears win and the Bears are 7, and then I don't know. There's
nothing would make Bears fans happier than to beat the Packers 2 games in a row. Let's not even talk about that.
Yeah, no, that's gonna melt my brain trying to figure this out. Like having the different with the one seed getting the bye now, and it's a little bit weird. Like I'm still getting used to that. Like when I look at it and I was looking at the playoff scenario, I was like, wait a minute, what? Why are there 7? Oh yeah, I forget. There's 7, and then it's like, but it's a weird scenario with just the one team getting a bye, and I'm trying to kind of make sense. But that's an even bigger reason, right, to get that 1 seed now than in the past and get that extra time to rest up, especially when you have a veteran club like the Packers that really, I feel like they're kind of on autopilot and can be, and I mean that in the best possible way. I don't mean they don't care. I just mean that they played together for a long enough time. Rodgers been there forever. Yeah. And so, again, it is a little bit interesting. Although you look at it on one hand, you look at a team like the Bears, who are just catching their stride now. Not that they can get a bye, so it doesn't matter. But some teams, it's better to have to play those games to keep that momentum, to keep that rhythm going. And I feel like they're in that spot. And maybe there's a bright side to it to say, like, hey, Montgomery should have been getting a lot more carries a lot earlier in the season, but he didn't, and he doesn't have nearly as much wear on those legs and on that body as he would have if he was getting the proper carries. So, and Trubisky obviously didn't get as much time, and he's healthy. So, so we'll see. I mean, there are ways to look at this as the glass very much being half full. That's just hard for me to do after, I drank half of it and then threw it up, and then I didn't want to go back and drink the rest. So
yeah, I mean, dude, if you're talking about health, the Bears' offensive line is as good as it's been. You're right. I mean, they've got a young core. When you start talking about, even Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, Anthony Miller. I mean, these guys are all kind of primed and ready to go.
Jimmy Graham looks like he decided to start playing again too.
That was weird. That was real weird. He looked like he wasn't lumbering. He was actually kind of moving.
Well, it's like they started winning again. He started getting catches again. It's like, oh shit, yeah.
It's like, wait,
you mean I can get a paycheck and try to play well? Oh, what a concept!
That was very nice to see that for a change, but it's just it's going to be interesting for sure. I mean, hey, listen, all we can ask for after losing 6 games in a row is the fact that the Bears are playing the Packers in a meaningful game, that they can make the playoffs. I mean, it is what it is. They're not going to get a chance to draft a quarterback, which I'm very happy about, to be honest with you, because unless they're getting the top 5 pick, I just really am not interested in them trying to get a quarterback in this draft, unless it's like in the 2nd or 3rd round. They need to look at their offensive line. And that, to me, that needs to be a priority. Obviously, that was so glaring this season that it's not even funny. Although their line is playing better, they just don't have anybody. They don't have any backups. If they improve that, I think they'll be fine. You've got Montgomery looking good. Artavis Pierce looked really good yesterday. I mean, he only had 2 runs, but that 23-yard run was just
he had a couple of big runs.
And so he's exciting.
Let him stay in and punch it in. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of upside beyond this season for the Bears. It's just obviously there's going to be the concern about at the quarterback position. I feel way better with Mitchell Trubisky in there than I do with Nick Foles. When Foles came in there, I started having flashbacks. I think, it's just, he's not the answer. I would rather see them re-sign Mitchell Trubisky. Do they? They don't have. We talked about this last time. They don't have that 1 year option on Trubisky anymore.
Right. But they're, I think a lot of people are thinking, well, maybe you can re-sign him, which, I'm not saying that's good, bad, or otherwise. But I mean, a lot of this has been just tweeting stuff out. But I mean, we saw the report that everybody believes. Now, it's not saying Nagy is back, but everybody around the league believes he'll definitely be back. And I think we've been writing about that and talking about that, how it feels like there's a much higher percentage now that they're going to try to run it back. And as you said, if you can't go out and draft, and even if they did, it probably is not a guy who you'd expect to come in and start from day one. And obviously we've seen that they are reluctant to go out and pay any big money, especially with the cap situation maybe being what it is and other holes to address. And you look at how they've actually figured out how to use Trubisky. I mean, it's dumb mistakes aside, you sort of feel like, well, if you can get him on a reasonable deal for a couple years, that at least, provides you something to bridge that gap over. I mean, I'm feeling more and more as if they're going to find a way to run this thing back with as much of the current leadership and skill players, probably not Allen Robinson, as you mentioned, but as much of that as possible, because they are still a really young team when you look at their top skill players. Robinson's probably gone. Take out Jimmy Graham as the elder statesman. I see it happening. I see it possible.
If you can get just a little bit of growth from Mitchell Trubisky where he stops making those stupid throws and just kind of sticks with what he knows. And when he gets in a situation where no one's open, he just knows to throw the ball away, which seems really simple. Kind of almost as simple as Matt Nagy turning
that's
over.
a decision beyond whatever his first read is. So you got unless your first read is to throw it away, he's probably not making that one.
But, if you can get him there, if you can get him to be an efficient quarterback, I think back to when Baltimore won the Super Bowl, and they didn't have a great offense there.
They had a crappy offense. They had Trent Dilfer as their quarterback.
Yeah, but comparable to Mitch Trubisky. And so a guy who you don't make mistakes. And listen, you can win Super Bowls with quarterbacks that are guys that just don't make mistakes, but you have to get there. And Mitch Trubisky is real close to being there. And I think that, with this core, they're all young. If you can get Mitch over that hump and, kind of stick with him, he could get there.
I want to see more of that deep ball, though. That's really less than the mistakes don't even bother me as much, because if you look at a guy like Brett Favre, I mean, obviously a lot of that got thrown. You talk about a dude who made a bunch of dumb, or Eli Manning, right? Just making some awful mistakes from time to time and getting super lucky, like with the giant snatch, that I, as I like to call it, the crazy catch off the helmet. But the thing is, when you've got somebody like Mooney, you've got to be able to utilize that and be able to stretch the field and take the top off the defense, right? If Trubisky can't get to that to me is a bigger hindrance to his overall development and the Bears' potential than the dumb mistakes. Every now and again, you're going to have that. Those things happen. But if you can't make up for it, right, you can make a dumb mistake as long as you can make up for it by having that play, those chunk yard plays that are going to get you 30, 40, 50 yards because Mooney just escaped over the top, beat his man, and took it to the house. But if you can't take advantage of that, that is a problem. And so that's what I would like to see more than anything, is for him to be able to eventually make that read and get enough time to make those plays. But I mean, we'll see. And I think we'll get a chance to. I mean, I'm feeling more and more as if we're going to see a pretty familiar Bears team from the roster to the upper organization in 21.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll at least have some fans. So, it'll make it a little bit more interesting there. And yeah, we'll see. It's stuck in mediocrity. But the Bears play the Packers next week at 3:25 Central Time. So it is the afternoon game, a rare afternoon game for the Bears. And the Cardinals and Rams play at the same time. The Seahawks and the 49ers play at the same time, and the Saints and the Panthers play at the same time. Actually, a lot of afternoon games. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. like 8.
Which is like the opposite of what, usually you've got 2 or 3 in the later slot there. So, so that'll be kind of interesting. But and that's what I was wondering, how those things, and I know they like to slot those things out, right? Because you don't want, just like we saw with Major League Baseball, right, where they went to scheduling all the final games at the same time, because you didn't want teams tanking it there late or knowing how they're fake, because you want to give the fans a good product. So I'm always in favor of that. I don't like teams being able to sit there and have their fate determined in the 1 o'clock slot and then be able to handle it. So I think the NFL did the right thing with kind of moving as many games as possible into that later time slot.
Yeah, the meaningful ones.
The meaningful ones, right? Because then you want those teams having to play. I mean, it doesn't matter. The NFL is more so than most other sports. I'll be interested to watch a matchup of 2 teams, even if I don't have a vested interest in either of them. So to actually produce a bunch of games that are all meaningful, that are going on at the same time, it kind of has that NCAA tournament feel to an extent, and kind of teams all having to play for seeding and just getting in the first place. So good for them. Should make for a fun afternoon of football.
Definitely. So we'll see what's up. The Cubs show is coming up next, guys. So I know we've got some people. Listen, let me just explain something real quickly. So we run Cubs Insider and we run Bears Insider. Cubs Insider is established. It's been around for a while. Bears Insider is new. So we broadcast Bears Insider. We broadcast the Rant Live Bears on our Facebook page, so that in case there are some Bears fans over there on the Cubs side of things, where we have a much larger following, we can try to grow the Bears thing. Okay. So everybody calm down. The Cubs show is going to be coming on, and hey,
we should talk about Bears on there just to piss everybody off. That's
if you don't like the Bears, then you don't have to watch it. But if you do, then kind of follow us over on Bears Insider. Check out our podcast. This will be a podcast. We'll publish it, and we'll publish the Cubs Rant Live as a podcast too. So we appreciate all you guys being around for us. And that'll do it for today's show. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.